Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
James, did you see me slide the microphone across there just in front of me? I was like, oh, where's my microphone? But it's here now, so hopefully they can hear me nice and clear.
I've got to edit the intro already, have I?
No, it's all good. Literally everything in front of me on my table. But 9 games gone, 2 more still to go. And then we've got game week, another double game week straight off the back. And then a blank game week.
We've got a single, a double, a single, a double, a blank,
quadruple,
a double.
Whatever.
That's where we are at now. The odd weeks are doubles. That's an easy way to try and remember it at the moment.
Okay, fair play. I'm on 46 points as it stands, James, which is a game week rank of 3.5 million. So middle of the road, maybe a bit below middle of the road. It's a small red arrow, from 510 to 530k. But then I've still got all my City and all my Arsenal, free City, free Arsenal still to go. So that could change. I mean, a lot of the engaged managers will have quite a lot of City and Arsenal coverage. So I don't think I've got a fixture gain advantage, particularly on the horizon. But I do have quite a few players still to go, including Erling Haaland captaincy. Nothing spectacular. Luke Shaw and Marcus Rashford were decent, 20 points between the two of them. Bukayo Saka with an assist and Erling Haaland with an assist. That's my lot for the week so far. Nothing from Kane, De Bruyne, Trippier, Kepa Arrizabalaga. As it stands, Rico Lewis is a no-show. Should he not get any minutes against Arsenal as well, then I have 6 points from Andreas Pereira ready and waiting to come in, which is not too bad.
I think there's every chance you'll get that.
Yeah, I could see that happening. So my first sub sitting there ready. It's not too bad a deal, but I do have Haaland, De Bruyne, Odegaard, Saka, Ben White, Rico Lewis or Pereira still to come in.
Yeah, I mean, live score as of not live FPL net, including hits, is basically around about 48. It does look like the majority of the engaged players have at least 5 to go. Many will have 6. So might end up being much of a muchness, but particularly maybe if I'm feeling it for the triple captain. If Haaland is injured and doesn't play on Wednesday night, which in a weird way on that particular night might even work into Manchester City's favour a little bit. We'll certainly talk about their performance towards the end of this podcast. Obviously, Pep changed quite a lot again yesterday. So I'm on 44 minus 4 with David De Gea yesterday, essentially saving my game week somewhat. But for every David De Gea for me, there was like a Luke Shaw for you, right? So, yeah, nothing much to speak of other than Rashford, Saka and Haaland's captaincy, 4 points from yesterday. So a bit meh at the moment, but I always suspected it would be, as I knew there was going to be triple captainers out there for Haaland, although EO nowhere near as big as I thought it was going to be, to the extent for me was placed at sort of like 580k going into the week. That actually his returns would have been good for me. I wasn't expecting that. I was just captaining him to cover up. So yeah, it seems like so many people obviously went with Marcus Rashford the week before. And I guess maybe the announcement of the additional fixtures in 25 might have slowed a few people off, where they thought, oh, there's a Salah opportunity there, or a better double for Arsenal players, for example. So that might have taken away some of what the triple captaincy numbers might have been for Haaland. Obviously, we do have 2 fixtures added to game week 27. Those are Brighton versus Crystal Palace and Southampton versus Brentford. And yes, sure, we'll come back and talk about this more in terms of chip strategies and stuff. But it's a pain in the arse, isn't it? It's just another problem for game week 25, in the sense most people looking at it going, I need to get rid of my United, Newcastle, Brighton players. If I've got Brentford, I'm definitely getting rid. You don't definitely want to get rid now. So there's a conversation you'll hear on tomorrow's Clash of Correspondents, which features Tom Med, our Brentford correspondent, and Mig, our Crystal Palace correspondent. And we line up the situation and say, what happens if you've got like Trippier, Shaw, Estupinan and Ben Mee going into game week 25, and you probably don't want to get rid of any of them because Brentford and Brighton have now got the double. You would probably have big value up in Trippier. So there's like Luke Shaw, for example. Does that become the obvious sell? Some people are going to be in really difficult situations like that. And of course, the interest in particularly Brentford and Brighton will increase significantly with those extra fixtures in 27. It's leaning into the idea now where one of the chip strategy ideas we didn't speak about was the idea of wildcard 27, free hit 28, wildcard 29. We probably did mention it, but it wasn't sort of top of the
Wildcard
agenda.
27, free hit 28,
bench boost
bench
29,
boost 29.
sorry. Yeah, because 29 is still likely to be the biggest double. And there's a number of teams I think we can be very confident will double in that game week. And United, Brentford, and Brighton are three of them. And we know that Arsenal won't have a double. And you're kind of leaning into slightly more a difficult run for Arsenal. So, yeah, that's something that many people will be considering now is wildcard 27 and free hit 28, bench boost 29. I'll repeat what I said on the last strategy pod we did. I won't be making any decision on what I'm doing till after those FA Cup 5th round results and know what 28 looks like, and then can really see what 29 probably really, really will look like.
Depending on circumstances, I think a lot of people shouldn't be fearful of going into 25 with 10 or 9 players.
Absolutely agree with you.
That's the way I see it. It's like 9 or 10 is okay. Don't panic, hit, take to get through it, because in any given week, only 4 or 5 players return anyway. You're always going to have a few blanks. So yeah, I think for me, I've got 4 between Manchester United and Newcastle, 3 United and 1 Newcastle, none of the others in terms of Brighton and Brentford. And Martial's obviously flagged, so he's an easy sell for me. And Luke Shaw will probably be the other easy sell because of value. Rashford and Trippier will hold. But other than that, I'd be happy to just hold them through.
Yeah, and 25 as a free hit's getting spoken about more and more. I'm really not keen. I mean, most of you will have 3 Arsenal anyway, so there's that double covered. Liverpool, I think, will be accessible for many people. Are we that fussed that because Everton's got an extra fixture away to Arsenal and Wolves have got an extra fixture away to Liverpool, like I want to get 3 of them each and stuff like that? And for those with the single fixtures, I mean, Tottenham and Chelsea play each other. How good of a week is it, really? City will likely rotate with a Champions League game straight afterwards as well. I think it's straight afterwards. No, it'd be straight before, wouldn't it? Sorry. So you've got City playing Forest and Bournemouth with the Champions League game in between. So there's every chance you could free hit into City players and maybe you'll want to come off them. But yeah, I'm really not keen on free hit 25. If it works best for people, always play it your way. But I mean, there's many better options than free hit 25. And loads of people will free hit in 25. Loads. Because it'll be, I've got a problem. Okay, what's my solution to fixing the problem? Free hit 25. Bigger problems down the line, I think, where it can be used more aggressively or more defensively.
It was a very controversial weekend, James.
Yeah, very controversial. Yeah, we're just going to go through the VAR decisions quickly now because otherwise we might end up just talking about the VAR decisions. I'd rather talk
Football's
about football.
Got to be careful here. I'm honest to God, like I look at it, and the week before we'd obviously had the news with Manchester City's charges, with the financial stuff going on. Not only was there VAR controversy, there was like fan trouble. So I saw there was some violent stuff outside London Stadium with Chelsea fans that has been shared. You've now got Leeds and Manchester United fans having to issue the apology around the chanting and stuff. At what point, it's like, this is a sport which is played on the pitch with 11 players, and yet all the stories never seem to be about what's going on the pitch. So often it's all the on-field stuff. And this is a big problem for football, in my opinion. It's going to turn a lot of fans off, where you're like, when does it stop being about 11 players against 11 players on the pitch and everything else that goes with it is a circus? Sod it. I'm going to walk away. I think this kind of stuff is really irking a lot of people.
But a lot of people want to hear about the controversies as well, to turn that on its head. A lot of people want to have the debate about how bad VAR was at the weekend. You know, one of our patrons said, it's going to be a 2-hour podcast because they're going to be talking about VAR decisions for so long. No, we're not. We're going to cover it off very, very briefly. But yeah, a lot of people love hearing about the controversies and, why do you think you made that decision? And I mean, a few of these, the biggest problem in terms of...
But there's no... Sometimes decisions are made and it's a matter of opinion, right? You give 2 people the same bits of data and they can interpret it a different way. This is not a case of that. This is a case of one person not interpreting or even looking at the data and coming up with the conclusion.
Not just
and
one.
at that point, yeah, I know. I mean, this is an example of, but what I'm saying is then there's no debate about whether it's a matter of opinion or could be one way or another, because they're just not using it. This is stupidity we're fighting against.
I mean, the only one you can really debate from the controversial ones at the weekend is there may be some people that don't think Chelsea should have had a penalty, but I can only think that most of them would support West Ham.
Yeah, it's a fair play.
I don't know how that's not been given as a penalty. Just briefly on that one, again, it's a little bit more acceptable because it was an interpretation. I mean, the Brentford goal that was allowed and the Brighton goal that was disallowed, I mean, they're unbelievable because actually you've used the matter of fact and still got it wrong.
Well, Lee Mason came out after the Brentford one and said he forgot to draw the lines.
Did he actually say that?
Yeah, he forgot to use the lines.
I mean, can I be honest with you? And I'm sorry, I don't really want to see anyone lose their job. That is sackable offence. Because if Arsenal could have set Man City on 1 point, my God. I mean, someone here in my room will be laughing about it a little bit.
City won the league by 1 point from Liverpool. They got the penalty against Wolves where it didn't hit his arm and hit his body. They get given a penalty. They win 3 points. That goes the other way. Liverpool win the title. And now
but at least
you can claw back every decision. And
No, I get that.
Don't want to do that.
But what's particularly bad with the Arsenal and Brighton incidents at the weekend was you've got the equipment, the lines, etc., and you've put them in the wrong place.
The Arsenal one, they took 3.5 minutes, and they still didn't look checking it. Like, what the hell are they doing?
Well, they just got obsessed with the first decision, which for me wasn't. I mean, when the original ball's flighted in, it's not offside. Anyway, let's cover these quickly because I don't want to spend all day talking about it. The Gallagher handball. So, interpretation of the rule, understand the difference as far as I'm concerned, right? There was one in the World Cup where a player went to tackle someone and obviously their hand is coming down to the floor to break momentum. And the rule should be, if you're going to block from close distance or make a tackle, your hand's you don't fold your arms when you're going to make a tackle, for example. There has to be something natural about it. What's unfathomable about the Souček one is a shot is taken from the edge of the box. He's 10 yards away and he goes to ground. But he doesn't go to ground as in like feet first. He goes to ground like
turns away.
He literally saves it. It's a penalty all day, every day.
I don't know but what are they saying? By the time the ball hit him, he kind of had his back to the player.
No, that's why I think they've not given it, is because his body's going to ground, his hands have got to go somewhere, right?
Right, okay.
But there's no excuse for the fact that he was going to ground. He wasn't tackling or blocking from close distance. So he's actually dived towards the ball and saved it.
Maybe he slipped. Yeah, I get it. I would have given a penalty.
There's no way.
I'm a West Ham fan. That for me was a penalty.
The Toney goal and the Estupiñán disallowed goals, the beyond belief. The beyond belief. I mean, the only thing I would say on either is it would have been good to see the line for the Arsenal Brentford one, because we are all assuming that it was definitely offside. Of course, we would never see that because they never drew it. So, unless someone's going to go back and do it. The Harvey Barnes disallowed goal, which obviously I was at the game. I was at the other end, so you couldn't tell in the stadium at the time. But I've seen back the still. And all right, we'll have to go matter of fact that they're saying, yeah, but honestly, when you look at the still,
how are you going to know?
He doesn't.
You're not zooming.
He doesn't look offside at all.
Not even. That for me is like, you can't call that. Come on.
And the Mario Lemina one is bizarre. So supposedly Ruben Neves did an interview after the game where he said, the referee told me that Lemina was sent off as a second yellow card because he was the third person to come over. There was also an incident yesterday in the City Villa game where similar thing happened. And to be fair, from a consistency perspective, I think it was Ruben Diaz was booked and he was the third person to go to the referee. Sorry, how's the third person worse than the first and the second? I don't understand this. It seems like
Lemina wasn't mouthing off. Whereas Neves and whatever were mouthing off. So
the only thing I would say is, like, from our perspective, we don't actually know what he said. Like, if he shouted, for example, at the referee, "You're a cheat," he's going to get booked. You might think, "Oh, that's not a big deal." Referees will clamp on that. It's the one word not to use. It's like cheat. So if he shouted, "You're a cheat," and he got booked, I'd be like that. All right, you you know that's coming basically. But that to be in a position where he's the third person to come over, and I realize he traveled a distance, but he didn't come over aggressively and stuff.
No, it's crazy.
Like seriously, we'd be booking 10 players every game. So I agree in terms of surrounding referees and stuff. We obviously want to stop that. Get the first person. Honestly, it's almost like a decision has been made by Howard Webb to say, right, so when the third person comes over, that's too many. That's the point of stopping the crowd. But 2 people can be there in a referee's face. I'd understand that. And that, for me, is another one where you're changing the rule mid-season. So should there have been other red cards earlier in the season for other people? Stop making rules up during the middle of the season. It's a little bit silly. So Lamina can certainly feel unlucky. But at least there was the consistency with the City decision yesterday that made us understand it a little bit. But that's some nonsense that the third person gets put. You wanted to clamp down on it properly, but the first person.
Yeah, there you go. VAR in a nutshell. Not good for the game at the moment. Really, really frustrating.
We never get rid of it, by the way. There's
no
point.
I'm not saying we will.
I've been down this route, and you know me, I would sack it off. I would bin it. There's no point. It's not going anywhere.
People want to win games of football and titles and trophies on merit, not on controversial decisions, and that's the particular frustration.
Well, it's going to be quite amusing, like I said, if Arsenal lose the title by 1 point.
Yeah, hugely.
They will be in their rights to potentially sue, because it's a matter of fact decision.
Yeah. And they've come out, and obviously the Premier League and the referees have come out and said they made a mistake, which is really bad.
Don't be surprised. And this is really dodgy to say, but I'll say it anyway. Don't be surprised if Arsenal get a very dodgy decision on Wednesday night. Okay,
interesting. Let's see. Leveling it up. Let's talk about some of these games, James, that happened over the weekend. It's why people tune in and want to chat. Starting with West Ham Chelsea, the early kickoff on Saturday, similar to the Newcastle game. Started so slowly. You see Havertz offside goal, fine. Then João Felix scores. Then they score another one offside. João Felix was the first and whatever. You're thinking in the space of the first 25 minutes, they've had the ball in the back of the net 3 times. 2 of them chalked off. Here we go again. Similar against Newcastle. They had the ball in the back of the net once and 1 was offside. And you're thinking, what is going on here? No coincidence, James, that it's when we've had a back 3 and Thilo Kehrer has been playing in that back 3 and we're trying to play a high line and they're running in behind. All of these running in behind. Wilson's goal, running in behind. And a couple of these as well, running in behind. He's a liability.
You're holding him singly responsible?
No, but I think there's no coincidence in that. But they did get better. No joke, they did get better defensively, and obviously we did come back and score the equaliser and then hold out the rest of the game. But João Felix obviously back from his suspension on the score sheet. Enzo Fernandez on the score sheet. When I was looking at it, I was like, how do you compete when you've got like João Felix and Mudryk and Enzo Fernandez? And this is like they've just bought fucking not Galacticos, but you look at their team on paper. And the amount of money they've just dropped on it, and you're like, shit, Badiashile in there and so on. Difficult to compete.
It's going to take a while for them to gel, though, admittedly. I didn't see the game because I was obviously travelling up north, but it appears
where'd you go? That's for later.
Over land and sea, Leicester. It appears that Chelsea started the game very well. And then once you'd equalised, actually, they didn't do a huge amount to hurt you. Those who'd seen the highlights would go, oh, Chelsea dominated. And actually, by the end, West Ham actually edged the XG, actually. And very nearly won it themselves. Obviously, you had a goal disallowed correctly against Declan Rice for an offside towards the end. I think Felix stood out, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
7.5 forwards, quite an interesting one. And because they don't have the doubles, like other teams, largely going to get ignored. We've got Southampton at home this weekend, managerless, so maybe they'll get the no manager bounce. Then you've got Tottenham away, which we'll come on to is now a much easier fixture than it was 7 days ago. Leeds at home, Leicester away, Everton at home, Villa at home as part of probably a double. And they're largely going to get overlooked, I think.
7.5 is a forward. Ooh.
Yeah, he's interesting. I think a few weeks ago we'd have said Mudryk and stuff, but actually Felix has just played 2 games and he's looked good in both of them, and they've both been away games as well.
Is Romero suspended for that game against Chelsea still?
No, he'll be back.
He'll be back,
but I don't know if we've got anyone else available.
Yeah. So yeah, Chelsea looking all right.
90 minutes for Reece James is worth keeping an eye on. 5.7. I just think that's important. It wasn't anything overly from the weekend and make you go, oh my God, I've got to buy Reece James. But we know the capability. The fact he's got the 90 minutes, that's good. Obviously, the caution, if you were looking to buy Chelsea this week, which maybe particularly those who somehow rolled through last week might have the luxury. Obviously, they play Dortmund on the Champions League Wednesday. Southampton is Saturday. I could see Reece James potentially not playing this coming weekend, and they probably will mix and match it up a little bit. So it might be a case actually that waiting to 26 is better. I'd certainly wait till you got the information of Wednesday night. But I think if you did want to go in Chelsea defensively, other than Kepa's the obvious one at the moment, I think I would be looking to find the extra for James over Badiashile. Badiashile is really interesting because since he's come in, they've been better defensively. And of course, he's been left out the Champions League squad.
Yeah, he's not going to play midweek.
But I can't get the nagging out of my head that we don't know if he'll get favouritism over Wesley Fofana. And Wesley Fofana's really close. So until we've got some sort of clarity on that, and to be honest, I think the European games might just muddy the water. Where say they play in the Champions League before they play Leicester away in 27. And that's a point where, because they've got a good fixture in 28, you might really be looking to go in. But if Fofana's back by then and plays in the Champions League, I don't not quite know what that will tell us for the weekend afterwards. So still prefer that people found the money for Reece James. They played with more of a double pivot in midfield. Fernandes played much deeper as more of kind of like a deep lying playmaker in the game against Fulham. Loftus-Cheek played in a closer position to him for this one. I think he'll benefit from that. Not that he's in trouble playing as a one-man deep line midfield, if you will, but he's very good, as you've seen with the creativity for the goal, etc. He's not a player you really want to restrict. You'd like to see him in and around both penalty areas. So I think that setup will probably be best for Chelsea. And I think there's a chance that front four might become a regular front four. But again, you've got people to come back into that, like Sterling, for example. This was the first time in the world they played without Ziyech, which he's been really good for them in terms of the use of the hybrid system, shifting from a back four to back three. So there's every chance he could come back in at some point. For West Ham, you may have a couple of injuries, it seems, Suj. Paquetá obviously left the game very early.
Yeah, that was shoulder/collarbone. If you remember, that was what kept him out a little while ago.
Was it?
Before the World Cup. He missed a couple of games. You remember that was collarbone at the time. He'd fallen awkwardly on it.
So it could be an ongoing problem.
Don't know if it's a recurrence of, but he fell awkwardly in a tackle. Right, I think I can't remember who tackled him, but fell on top of him. So yes, that could be a problem. And the other one is even more of a problem.
Yeah. Is it an injury? Do we know?
Well, it was an injury substitution according to SofaScore. I'm not sure. Wait and see. Is what I would say.
I think he hobbled off, didn't he? So, yeah, if he's going to be out for a while, because he's made a big difference for you recently, isn't he?
I mean, yeah, he's a hell of a player. So, let's see. He'll come back here. He'll go off injured. Zuma will come back, and then it will be Bonner's turn to spend a bit of time on the side. They take it in turns. They rotate their injuries nicely.
Emerson.
But, yeah.
4 million. Scored.
He's worth it. He's worth
Is
it.
He?
Well, hey, you're not going to get anyone cheaper, are you? Really? We might go to what's his name, Kinder Bueno, or something like that. But 4 million, he's definitely going to be that left wing back. Creswell's out of the team now.
Forest's away scoring record is pony. Another weekend they haven't scored away from home. I think for those who are free hitting in 25, probably get him.
It's a decent shot. He definitely is.
Yeah.
And look, for West Ham, for 3 games, undefeated now, beat Everton, drew Newcastle, drew at Chelsea. If you'd offered me 5 points before that, I would have taken it. We go into playing you guys now. There's always going to be a difficult game regardless. But then after that,
you all play like your life
easier.
Depends on it.
Well, yes, but that might not help us necessarily. But then that was a difficult run up until we played you. So, yeah, to pick up 5 points, quite happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it obviously looks a little bit better for you once you get on the other side of that Tottenham game longer term. We kind of highlight this Newcastle, Chelsea, Tottenham block. So, yeah, to get 2 points out of those games and keep you ticking over, he's fine. You'll believe that you can get something again at the weekend. It's going to be a really interesting game, actually, which is the 4:30 on Sunday. Yeah, do you know what, guys? A bit of advice here. Go and do something else. There'll be 2 football teams who won't want the ball.
Yeah, there'll be goals. There'll be shit.
That's
But
a
there'll be
really
goals.
sorry state for you and I to be in at the moment, mate.
Oh, mate. Let's
Yeah,
talk about.
the two creative players that both teams had both just got injured at the weekend.
Let's talk about Arsenal Brentford. We're happy with 2 draws in a row. Arsenal now draw, defeat, draw, and they will be less happy with their. It's draw, defeat, draw, isn't it? Newcastle, Everton.
No, just defeat draw, isn't it? They lost at City in the cup, might be what you're thinking of, maybe.
But then the previous game, Newcastle in the lead. Well, that was 2 games before.
Oh, that's a while before, mate.
Still, just not racking up the wins, and yeah, they'll be disappointed.
I mean, look, the easy thing is to start questioning what's wrong with Arsenal. The one thing I have heard from a few Arsenal fans is that the atmosphere was a bit flat at the weekend. And I've warned that these games can be particularly dangerous. You play an opponent like Brentford, with respect to them, they're not going to bring a noisy crowd either because they're just not that sort of football club. And your mind is constantly thinking about Wednesday. And you take your eye off the ball a little bit. And that's not to say Arsenal did, but maybe some of the fans did. I'll beat Brentford. Wednesday's more important against Man City. So, and to be fair, it's not a slander on the atmosphere at the Emirates because I know and I've heard it. It has been better this season. There's no question of that. Brentford, it'd be easy to overlook here and not give them credit. They have, and we discuss it at length with Tom Med tomorrow on COTC. They've lost the same amount of games this season as Man City, Suj.
They're 10 undefeated in the league.
And that run includes playing Liverpool, Man City, Tottenham, Arsenal. It wasn't an easy run of 10 fixtures. It's why a lot of us don't have any Brentford assets because they came back with a tough run of fixtures that included Tottenham, Liverpool straight away. And obviously last game before the World Cup, they won at the Etihad. And Arsenal fans should remember that right now. Yeah, they've drawn at home to Brentford. It's not good. City lost at home to them.
Yeah.
So if you start comparing the results for that one, you're 1 point up. You both played Everton very recently. Arsenal were 1 point down. City drew at home to them. Drawing at home to Brentford is not. Look, Arsenal should be winning. There's, a big 16 playing at home to Brentford will expect to win, no doubt about it. And as much as we've said, look, the goal was controversial, and it was, Brentford deserved a point. Brentford could have easily been a couple up at half time.
They out XG'd Arsenal, despite if you look at it as stats.
Well,
Arsenal
I mean, Tony's goal, it's worth saying, is very high XG. High. He can't miss.
But yeah, then look at big chances. Arsenal only had the one. Brentford had 3, and they missed 2 of them. So in terms of actual quality of opportunity, despite the 7 shots on target or nearly 70% possession for Arsenal, Brentford had the better quality chances. But that's what they will do, right? They can hit you on the counter and cause you all sorts of problems because they're very clinical at that.
Yeah, they're a decent side. And there's a number of FPL assets we could consider from Brentford. Obviously, remember they blank in 25, but obviously it's the double 27. Where they're interesting is they're obviously extremely likely to double in 29 as well. And currently they probably won't have a fixture in 28. Again, it's the sort of one, it's going to be similar for Brighton, leads into the idea of wildcard 27, bench push 29. As good as Brentford and Brighton have been, though, I wouldn't necessarily define my chip strategy based on those 2 teams. Raya, 4.7. Ben Mee's obviously really popular, 4.5. Henry and Pinnock are certainly worth a look. I've really got my eyes on Rico Henry. And Boomer's 5.8. And Toney, 7.6. He's up for 2 bans because the interesting knock on with him, don't he? It's not just a betting ban. He's on 8 yellows now.
Oh, the 2 more and he's got a 2-game ban or 3-game ban.
So imagine this, right? Imagine you go into 27, you don't know him, and he's on 9 yellows, and he's got Everton away and Southampton away. And a lot of people, I think, will want to captain him. Great fixtures in the double. If he was to then get booked in the first game away to Everton, he'd miss the second part of the double in 27. And he'd also, as long as Leicester win in a cup, he'd miss the first part of the next double in 29 as well. To just become single fixtures.
Is it a 2-game ban when you get to 10 yellows or 3?
Yeah, so it's 10 yellow cards. It's a 2-game ban before your 32nd match.
Right.
So you've got to think, if he's on 8 yellows before game week 32 comes round, he's going to get a couple more, isn't he? There's every chance. Now, to be fair, Harry Kane was on 4 yellows for quite a while, and I think stopped going in for challenges and stuff like that. But it's difficult to think how awkward that will be. 1 booking in the next 2, and he goes into that situation in 27. But what do? That's brutal. You potentially think if you've hit 28, you think I'm getting back-to-back doubles out of a really good forward here. And you might literally just end up with Everton away. And there's every chance Brentford's second fixture in 29 could be Manchester United away. And you go, oh, that's not so clever. So awkward one. But his performance at the weekend, outstanding. And I didn't see a huge amount of the game, but a couple of stats for you, which tell me that there was a domination in this game. He won 12 of 13 aerial duels, Ivan Toney. That's the most of any player in any Premier League game this season. William Saliba won 0 of 10.
That's because every time Toney backs into him, he puts his arm around him and gives him a reverse cuddle or whatever you call it. That can't be legal.
Well, no, it's not legal, but if it's not spotted, it's not spotted.
The refs just miss it every time.
So he's a clever player and he's getting away with stuff.
He's a cheat. If he's committing fouls and getting away with it, that's cheating, right or wrong?
It's up to the referee to spot it. I wouldn't say backing into your opponent and putting your arms around. I wouldn't describe it as cheating. Would we say every foul is a cheat? Someone's cheating.
Well,
then
there's a difference between like sometimes you're late in a tackle and it's unintentional. If you put your arms around and hold the player, i.e. a wrestling move, James, that's intentional. He's not doing that. So he's trying to get an unfair advantage. Shirt pulling, no different.
And
no different. It's cheating. It's breaking the rules. If you know you shouldn't do it and you do it intentionally.
Well, it's up to the referees to penalise it now, isn't it? He got a very dodgy penalty against Bournemouth a few weeks back. So people should be aware of it now.
Yeah.
Penalise it.
But breaking the rules intentionally is cheating. I'm not saying it.
But if the player knows he's going to get away with it, he's going to keep doing it.
Well, it's not his. Well, it's his fault in the fact that he's done it, but the referee should be picking up on it. In any case, excuse me. I don't know if there's a concern there on Saliba. And again, I didn't watch the game, right? So I can't tell you that he played badly or anything like that. But he's a bit of a mountain himself. You can't expect that for a centre-back to go up for 10 aerial duels and win none of them. Like, what is that? That's Ben White's been criticised in the past. He's not good enough in the air and stuff. Saliba, since the World Cup, has had some iffy moments, I think. And I'm not saying he'll come out the team or should come out the team. It might be something to keep an eye on in the near future, though, particularly with the likes of Tomiyasu back fit, where obviously they could shove White inside, or they've obviously got the new Polish centre-back, Kiwior, who's fairly experienced, has got a number of international caps. That's not to suggest Arsenal should or will change, but I would suggest there was a problem there at the weekend, and Brentford isolated it. Much in the same way they did, by the way, at Man City. They had most completion of direct balls in a game all season when they won at Man City at the time as well. So Brentford, as per usual, tough team to play against. Arsenal, we shouldn't overly stress. Martinelli, did you keep or sell, Suj? Sell. Got all the good.
Went off on 62. This is what's going to keep happening, isn't it?
Yep. And Trossard scored. So
so that's not helped the narrative anymore, I don't think. So listen, those who kept have got more points than Trossard this week because he got the clean sheet bonus point, didn't he? So he's on 3 actually, but yeah, couple of minutes the other way and it's easily 1 pointer, isn't it? And Trossard scoring, yeah, I think the inevitability is, I'm pretty sure Martinelli will start against City, but there is inevitability, it feels, that at some point there's going to be a rotation there. So I took the decision to get Odegaard in.
The big derby of the weekend, James, the biggest derby of them all, Palace-Brighton.
The motorway rivalry, which I can now confirm will be one of the 2 clash of the correspondents going into Gameweek 27. I'm hoping that Sam and Mig don't kill each other. Not going to talk too much about Palace because we speak about it with Mig quite a bit on tomorrow's COTC. But they've had a few results late. They've obviously in this really difficult run, drawing against Brighton, drawing against Newcastle. They're not disaster results. One note on them is haven't beaten any team in the top half yet this season. And yet they're a side we expect to cause problems for the opposition. I don't quite understand why Eze's not been playing, particularly with Wilfried Zaha absent. It just makes them very, very bland. And Brighton should have won this. And how many times have we reflected on Brighton versus Palace games and gone, how have Brighton not won that? It's like a curse. It must be. Robert Sanchez does not drop that ball playing against any other team. The real thing that stood out for me watching the highlights at the weekend was the position of Alexis McAllister. So Roberto De Zerbi said after the World Cup that there's every chance we'll play him in a higher position. We want to speak to him about what he thinks is best for him. And it looks like he's going to keep playing his 10 position. I mean, he had 4 shots on target at the weekend.
Oof.
And he really should have come away from the game with a goal. And there's obviously been a lot of focus on Mitoma, and March was the one who scored this week at 5.3 and 5.1. Just be eyes on the prize with McAllister at 5.4. He's probably the pen taker as well. So I'm really, really interested in that one all of a sudden. Those who've gone for Mitoma aren't moving, and those who went for March certainly aren't moving after he scored again at the weekend. All 3 of them potentially very, very good assets. Lewis Dunk, 4.7, feels like the safest one to go for defensively at the moment. And there's a few people...
Stupiñán's picked up a couple of assists recently, though. You don't think at 4.6 he's worth it?
I just mean safest in sense of when games are clustered together. There is 100% no doubt that Lewis Dunk will play. There is no reason to believe that Stupiñán won't play at the moment
he's
either.
He's played every game recently.
Yes, he has.
Well,
it's been like that for a
yeah.
while. And if you were going in, I would gamble on Stupiñán. I mean,
Me
you'd
too.
probably do the same.
Me too. Yeah.
At 4.6, that's really interesting. And of course, it was his goal that was disallowed, and he's assisted March's goal. He had 2 assists at Leicester, although they were very kind of low XA moments in that particular fixture. There were obviously great goals from Mitoma and Ferguson. But yeah, Stupiñán's high on agenda. I think Sanchez is one that, say, people have got the likes of De Gea and Ward like I have. You begin to look at that's always that my solution, rather than pissing about with the defensive players if I want some Brighton coverage. But it's awkward now, isn't it? Like, because of the blank 25, it's like many weeks it's been, I was like, I don't really know how I go in this week. I'm not set with a bad team where I think, I've got to get Brighton players for Fulham at home and then give myself another headache where they blank. But both them and Brentford are right top of the agenda from 26, subject to what the plan is, because it might be that it's a 1-week transfer if I've decided I'm going to wildcard in 27, right? And then therefore I might be looking at a few other teams like Leicester away to Southampton, and it might be that I just go in 27. Just a note on 27, which is really interesting. Have you had a look at the other fixtures that week, Suj?
Nope.
So Liverpool go to Bournemouth, and there'll probably be some interest from us, bearing in mind they've got the double in 25. City have got Palace away themselves, not a bad fixture. Tottenham have got Forest at home. Newcastle got Wolves at home. Arsenal go to Fulham. So the guys that we've got a lot of interest in already, they've all got good fixtures in 25, in 27.
Just so not double.
No, I agree, but I think it's another one where you're looking. If you wildcard then, which I'm thinking about, I'm asking about how big do I go? Because I still want Kane, I still want Haaland, I still want some Arsenal, I still want Trips. If I've still got him at that stage, I'm still going to Rashford over Southampton. As the one we didn't mention. So they've all got good fixtures. So just bear that in mind if you're thinking, I want 6 Brighton, 3 Brighton, 3 Brentford. I want to cut the Southampton, cut the Palace. Just bear in mind that there are some teams with amazing single game week fixtures in that week. What are you going to do? You're going to take Rashford out at home to Southampton because Mitoma's got a double. Like, I'm not sure that you are, for example. So if those were considering free hit that week, not that sure how many doubles you'd go with. I think you would gamble quite a bit on Brighton Brentford. And that obviously allows you still to go your likes of Haaland, Kane and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think you'd be going sort of 12 doublers in 27. It's just a point to make on that.
Well, Fulham Forest, a comfortable home win for Fulham, back to kind of winning ways. They've had I wouldn't call it a bad patch, but a stickier patch. But I did think this would be a comfortable home win for them. 2-0. And no goals from Mitrovic. Thank you very much.
No, very nearly got one.
But
though.
Close. Yeah, it was close. I don't think there's anything that I saw that made me panic with Mitrovic. But yeah.
No, but he's Brighton away this week. I think he's good coverage for 25 at the moment. Wolves at home. Then you probably 26. You're naturally coming off. If Toney hasn't picked up a booking in the game against Palace. You look at Mitrovic in 26 going to Brentford, then Arsenal at home in 27. Like, they're an obvious case, Fulham, where they don't have a good 27 fixture. And there's every chance they won't play in 28 either. And there's no chance that the Liverpool game would go into... Sorry, not no chance. There's no certainty that it would go into 29. I don't think it will, actually. So Fulham might suddenly be looking at a period, which is Brentford away, Arsenal at home, blank, then single fixture when most teams double. So there'll be a team, I think, that lose quite a bit of interest once we hit that point. And Mitrovic to Toney, if it's affordable, will be very, very popular in 26. But if you're there now, I think you hold Mitrovic for the next two and then go afterwards in 26. Willian played really well again, might have picked up a calf injury. But they do have Manor Solomon finally back available, and he obviously finished well for the second goal. Fulham were dominant. They hit the woodwork 3 times. The game shouldn't have been in question for as long as it was. They were a tough team to play against. Good side. They've improved a lot defensively.
Do you know, James, who has made the most tackles in the league this year? You do know, because I know we talk about it each and every game.
Why are you asking me that question? He didn't have one at the weekend, though.
Yeah, but I think it tells the narrative of the game, right? We talk about João Paulinho a lot because of Sky Fantasy Football, where he's making 4, 5, 6 tackles every game, and he made 0. He didn't have to make didn't have to make a single tackle, but for him to hit 0 tackles tells the story of the fact that Fulham did dominate.
Say that, but I mean, it was 50% possession each way.
But what kind of possession? If it's just tapping it around the back and Fulham are just letting them have the ball, it's not threatening possession per se.
No, fair. The main story from this one, though, is, I say comical. It's not funny because 2 players got injured. But we talk about double whammies. Have we ever spoken about a double hammy before?
Ouch.
That you got 2 players, Willy Bolly and Kieran McKenna, Nottingham Forest, 2 centre backs, both pulled their hamstring in the 7th minute. Literally like 2 seconds apart in the same passage of play. I'd never seen anything like that before. And in that early in the game, in the 7th minute as well, you got you questioning what your warm-up's like a little bit as well, unfortunately. That's a problem for them, though. And that should be noted. Because the one thing, and I didn't see a lot of this game, but the one thing that did stand out, and if you just want to go back and even just watch the 5 minutes of the game that was on Match of the Day, eyes on Joe Worrell, number 4, does some bizarre things. Like, he wasn't ready for that game. I suppose as a centre back, you're not thinking I'm going to get brought on after 7 minutes, but he looked like he wasn't in the right place. Felipe is obviously very experienced, came on alongside him. But yeah, that could be problematic for Forest to have lost both of them. Nia Kate still a few weeks away, who Mark Southerns rates quite highly, and he may get in the team, but it might be a little while. And Forest have got Man City next. And I'm not sure without Bolly and McKenna if they'll be able to put up some of the. They've made it very difficult for teams to score at City ground this year. City could have more joy than I may have originally anticipated, but that's just a no. They changed system as well, so they've been playing with these 2 kind of wide forwards. So I've been Chris Wood lately as kind of wide left forward, with Gibbs White as the 10 is behind. It's just like a kind of reverse triangle if you're looking upwards. This was more of a 4-2-3-1. Scarpa played wide on the left. Johnson, who's been in good goal scoring form recently, played wide on the right. And Gibbs White played behind Chris Wood. That's good for Chris Wood. It's not necessarily good for Forest structure, I don't think, because what they had been doing has been working very well. Just as discussed with Mark last week on COTC, that with Wood playing in the left-hand channel, it's weird. It was a player that didn't fit the profile unless the intention was to do this and go with him singularly up front. But then you're one lighter in midfield. That also could be a problem against City as well.
Right, James, I'm going to go and get my popcorn.
It's that time, 4, is it?
Tottenham 1. Go.
So I shut up with. Normally when we get battered like this, not I always start and credit the opposition. I will, but I feel like I need to start with Tottenham. So
first of all, we should sell Patreon, because we do a show each and every week called Tottenham, which if you sign up at intermediate tier, you get. And trust me, when Spurs and West Ham lose, we didn't this week, but we quite often do, it's the funnest show of the week. And if you want a real drill down, like 15 minutes and 20 minutes of James giving Jaffeton Kanga and Eric Dyer and Pedro Porro some real shit, it might be on that.
I'm not going to.
Wednesday,
we're doing it.
Awful, mate.
I'm going to be jet lagged, mate.
Oh, fair play. Because you're going to go and win in Milan.
So I really might, yeah, well, it could be a different mood by Wednesday. But it might be that I'm jet lagged and really lose my fucking mind on Wednesday. I sat at this time last week and I was like, whole team's fit. Look, we look like a good team. And then literally Wednesday morning, I can tell you the exact moment. Wednesday morning, 11:51 a.m. on Patreon on our Slack on the Tottenham channel, just put one word, fuck. And that was the news of Lloris being injured, which is such a huge blow. Honestly, I know he's had a bad season, etc. But old tree trunks in goal who can't move his legs, it's a bigger problem. Honestly, I'm not meaning to give away secrets here, guys, but if you do what Iheanacho did and you put it bottom corner, you ain't saving it. Because
It wasn't the only goal that was in the bottom corner, was it?
Well, no. And by the way, I'm not saying that you should necessarily save that particular one, but it's going to be a problem. Anything low and in the corner, he's going to struggle with. Unfortunately, it's just not an agile goalkeeper. If things are straight at him and stuff, and he's aerial stuff in the box, fine. But Tottenham are going to have real problems defensively while Hugo Lloris is out. We're fortunate that the fixture list isn't too bad, where we should be able to get through most of this.
Shoot on sight.
It's not a case of shooting on sight, it's how you do it. So if you shoot straight at him, he's fine and stuff. If it's bottom corner, yeah, trouble, mate. Romero was obviously suspended. We knew that would be a problem. I don't know why he picked Tanganga over Sanchez. Sanchez is a car crash, but I honestly, I don't understand that. Fortunately, he will be back. Ryan Sessegnon's now injured for 6 weeks. Now, to be fair, he's been wank most of this season. But it does mean that 34-year-old Ivan Perisic has got to play most of the games at left wing back, or we throw Emerson to that side. Porro shouldn't have started. Just purely on the basis that Emerson Royal was so good against Man City. And you can say, oh, on paper, Leicester's an easier fixture. Yeah, but that 1v1 duel against Harvey Barnes is tough. He's direct. He will go at you. And he really struggled, Porro. And it wasn't the game to introduce him to. I actually think playing you at home next week, where he's probably only got Emerson that side and perhaps Ben Rama's not going to hold the touchline as so much, would have been so much of an easier game to introduce him into. And he had a very difficult game. Those who've, likes of Tim Sherwood coming out on Soccer Saturday and saying, oh, he's abysmal, send him back. Tim Sherwood said that he'd seen him play for Benfica in the past. He's never played for Benfica before, by the way. But the biggest problem...
I think I've heard mixed. I've heard the combination of he wasn't good, but cut him some slack because it was his first game.
Yeah, it was the wrong game to put him in for.
I don't know if I agree necessarily. I mean, Ben Rama doesn't hug the touchline, but his preference when he picks the ball out wide is always to go around the outside. Like that's regardless of the fact that he's right-footed, he always goes around the outside.
Would you say he's as quick as Harvey Barnes?
Probably
Harvey
not.
Barnes is much more direct, isn't it?
He's rapid, but Harvey Barnes is rapid. Ben Rama's not slow, but he's definitely quicker. Is Harvey Barnes?
Anyway, all the rest of that's irrelevant because I watched our season disappear with Rodrigo Bentancur's injury. 6 to 8 months is what we think. So he's not even going to be available for the start of the next season. Never mind anything left in this one. Højbjerg suspended in Milan tomorrow night as well. So it's going to be Skip and Sarr in midfield because Basuma, minutes after Christian Stellini said in his press conference on Thursday, there's no other issues other than Lloris. About 5 minutes later on, I think on Richarlison's Instagram, there's a video with Basuma sitting in a training room with a protected boot on. He's had an operation on a stress fracture in his ankle. No timeline put on that yet. He might be out for the season as well. So our let's say our ball ability in midfield has just gone to none. And you really should be aware of that. But from an FPL perspective.
But by the time Bentancur had gone off, you were 3-1 down.
Oh, Rod didn't play well at the weekend. No, there wasn't a single player in the top.
If I look at your start, I know you're talking about injuries, but if I look at your starting 11, other than Tanganga for Romero and Lloris for Fraser Forster, that's your Porro's first game. Fine, but that's your best starting 11. You've only got two players missing, and defensively, they like Iheanacho just ran your centre backs ragged.
No excuses for the weekend. Like Bentancur didn't play well on Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm just
so what you're saying. I mean, in terms of injuries,
that going forward, it's a massive
Tottenham's
problem.
And I never go into Tottenham confident, especially Tottenham away. But you have problems at the moment. Like if there's a time to play you, I'll take it now.
I had 3 days of happiness, and it went as soon as Loris got injured on Wednesday morning. What's most damning from the weekend? Look, there was obviously a big problem in the first half where obviously they've hurt us really badly, and it can happen sometimes where a team equalises almost out of nothing, and then the second goal we concede is comical because Dyer steps out into a really bad position, but it is something that was tactical. They got really excited with the fact that these 2 games against Man City and had partial success with both Romero in the first game, in the first half. We had some success. We didn't throughout the whole game. And then obviously Dyer doing it last Sunday where they were stepping out into midfield. You can't step out, though, if your other centre-backs ain't with you, like what happens on that second goal. But it is both tactical and an individual error. They were very good, though, Suj. It should be said. When you look at
James, 2 games back-to-back, 4 goals in each. Villa and then against you. James Maddison looked like he was on it as well.
He's a terrific player.
I've got a nice orange flag on Anthony Martial right now. I haven't ruled out Iheanacho as the potential replacement. If he's going to get minutes, you won't tell me to or not to.
I won't tell you not to get him.
Yeah. We've seen it, right? We've all owned when he's patchy and he's on it. He's only started 3 games this season. He scored in all of them.
Well, and also, obviously, Barnes' disallowed goal would have been more points for him because it would have been his assist as well. He's got a goal in the Premier League with in every 112 minutes. Over all Premier League players that have 150 games, he's got the 10th best returns of goal per minute. 10th best in Premier League history for players who played 150 games or more. This is not rocket science. We spoke about this last week. If he plays, he'll score goals. And even though it's United away and Arsenal at home next, do you know what? If it solves an issue for you, I don't mind, because I'd still fancy him to potentially return in those 2. They're much better for having him in the team. Madison's obviously now playing as a 10, whereas before they had this lopsidedness where he was coming off the right flank. He's naturally playing that now, where Tete holds the flank. Harvey Barnes was very good, real threat. And in midfield and defence, they were strong. Suto and Fass were very aggressive defensively. Didn't get it right every time, but largely were very good and got better the longer the game went on. And the 2 in midfield were excellent. Dewsbury Hall and Papis Mendy. It's the best I've ever seen Papis Mendy play. He was so busy. He was probably man of the match. It was all over the place. He felt like this is a problem that actually Tottenham have. Players can play against Tottenham and look like world beaters because pressure on the ball at certain stages is just not good enough. And Dewsbury Hall, I've spoken about in the past. I don't think he's had a great season, but he's a clever player. Got a real understanding in terms of positionally, where to be. He's always in control. He's never sort of player feel like he's going to get shrugged off it. He's a classy player. So suddenly, they've looked strong. Christensen at left back looks a decent player for them. You've got Ricardo Pereira returned at the weekend. There's a few others like Johnny Evans are very close to returning. And suddenly you look at them. I mean, based on what I saw at the weekend, and it's easy for me to sit and moan about Tottenham, that Leicester are a top half team. Should we be going there and losing 4-1? No. And the most damning statistic from the weekend for Tottenham was the XG in the second half, for 0.17. We never looked like we were going to pull it back. It only looked like it was going to get worse. And 4-1 as a final reflection of that game was about right. From the FPL perspective on Tottenham, I'm just going to work on the assumption at the base at the moment that no one's got anything other than Harry Kane.
Fair assumption. Maybe a bit of Perisic lingering, but not really.
Well, from that perspective, it's possibly good news for you on Perisic with Sessegnon's injury, but I wouldn't guarantee that doesn't guarantee that Perisic play every game. Emerson at some point is going to end up playing a game at left wing back, or he's going to end up shunting Davis there. With Bentancur out injured, he has to go to 4-2-3-1 to give Højbjerg, and whether it's Saul will probably get the nod over Skip at the moment, to give them a chance. Let them sit as a base, push fullbacks on, and get the front 4 on the pitch, get Richarlison in the team, integrate Danjuma. That's what he has to do. He's not going to do it. He's so fucking stubborn with that formation. If he does it, I'll tip my hat off and say, well done. And even with the problems we've got, if he goes to that system, I'll repeat what I said a couple of weeks ago, I think we'll finish top 4. If he leaves Skip or Sarr with Højbjerg on their own in midfield, we are capable of losing to anybody in this league. Anybody. That includes the likes of Nottingham Forest coming in game week 27. They will give us problems. He has to change it. Don't think he will. We'll find out in the next few months what he's really made of, Antonio Conte. He's got to be flexible here and understand to work with the tools of what he's got. Because also defensively as well, even, let's be honest, I know Romero was suspended, but back three of Davis, Dyer, Tanganga, it's not even top half stuff, really. So it's about, if you play Romero and Dyer as two centre-backs and go to a back four, fine. If he did do it, by the way, it'd be terrible use for Perisic because you have to play Davis at left back.
Right, let's talk about Southampton Wolves, because this was, the end for Nathan Jones. Lost 12 or 13, did he?
Don't think he got to that many games, did he?
13 games if you include League Cup games.
He won more League Cup games than the Premier League games, didn't he?
Lost 7 out of 8 in the league. When you lose to 10 men, you lose a lead to 10 men and then lose the game to 10 men, and that's your seventh defeat out of 8. It was inevitable. I felt almost horrible because I watched Match of the Day on Sunday after he'd been fired, and then it had his post-match press conference from the Saturday where he's kind of talking about we had control of the game for the first 60 minutes and we were aggressive and played on the front foot, and then you're like, you're not in a job anymore, mate, because you lost to 10 men.
I mean, we actually had a discussion on our Patreon pod on Friday. Was like, what sort of circumstance where they lost? Could he stay in the job? Like, how bad could, if they lost 2-0 and Wolves dominated the game, how could he still keep a job? We never actually threw into the bargaining the idea that they'd go one up, the opposition would have a player sent off and they'd still lose. Wolves had 56% possession in the second half.
With 10 men.
With a man short. And if you're thinking, they just sat back as well, they had a higher XG. They also had a higher XG in the second half, despite the fact that the only big chance of the second half went to Southampton. Southampton, I can't believe that any Southampton fan will be listening to this right now disappointed that he's gone. 6th shortest reign in Premier League history. No teams picked up less points from the moment he was appointed. 3 points in 8 games. And there are 11 managers who have picked up points at St Mary's in games this season, and he isn't one of them. Damn in that, isn't it? The only points they got in the league was they won at Everton. And they had that little period, didn't they? They beat Everton, they beat Man City in the Cup, they won at Palace in the Cup. But yeah, they had to change. They had to change. There was way too much negativity around there. It felt like the players... I mean, there has to be a responsibility on the players for what's happened in that second half as well. I'm not saying there isn't. But, I mean, strategically, I don't know how you can allow that to happen. And it's not like 10 men can't win games of football. We've seen it before. But even the data suggests that Southampton just allowed it all to happen to them. It could become inevitability in the end. I mean, as well, he picked a back three and he played Ainsley Maitland-Niles as a right-sided centre-back. What's that?
Yeah, it's a bit bizarre. We're not looking really at Southampton from an FPL point of view, despite some of the newer signings being integrated into the team and Alcaraz scoring as well. But Wolves are interesting because they do have a double. There's some nicely priced players in there. Would you be adding any Wolves to your team for the double? Are you tempted by any?
I think I'd still be looking defensively first. I think Max Kilman is the safest one. Interestingly, Bueno came on and played quite well by all accounts in the second half on Saturday. And talking of which as well, go and look at Ray and Aït-Nouri on Southampton's goal. That's the worst bit of individual defending you'll probably see all weekend, where his head's not there, honestly. And I think he has lapsed of concentration. So Bueno, after missing out against Liverpool, where Aït-Nouri supposedly played quite well, might get back in again. But I would probably avoid that as new investment because Max Kilman's not a lot more. Max Kilman also had a very bad moment in this game, which led to that one big chance that Southampton had in the second half. But he'll definitely play. He's the only one that's natural, I think, left-sided centre-back. Dawson now looks like he's got favouritism over Collins, and he does maintain a very good aerial set-piece threat. Semedo should play the majority of games at right-back now. The goalkeeper's not had a great season, I don't think, Jose Sarr, but he's a viable asset. He's certainly capable of hauling. So I think defensively as well, I'd be looking first. I don't see where with the likes of Sarabia that I have confidence or faith that they'll get the returns at the moment. Opponents missed out again at the weekend. Whoever plays through the middle, if it's Cunha or Diogo Costa come on later in the game, and no real faith on them to score goals, or at least that it's clear who's going to be the talisman or talisman. They've definitely been better under Lopetegui. They're getting better and better, and they're going to get out of this. They're going to get out of this.
They're 5 points clear of Everton. Okay, game in hand for Everton, but it's Liverpool tonight. They're comfortable. I really do think the bottom four now are going to find themselves potentially cut away a little bit with Leeds, Everton, Bournemouth, Southampton.
With the midfielders as well. So perfect case. And it might be that it's something 425 and chain it on to something else. The one that I think you feel comfortable with almost in a weird way is Neves. Because you know he's going to be on the set pieces. He could be on pens. He loves the shot from long distance. No, can Ruben Neves get you a return in a double game week? Yeah, absolutely. But as soon as you come out of it and then you look at the 27 double and you start looking at people like Mitoma, McAllister, March with then their double, you're going to move it on, aren't you? Wolves also have Tottenham at home. Might not be so bad. And Newcastle away as the two fixtures immediately afterwards. Perhaps whether you end up holding or not might be dependent on obviously whether the Leeds fixture goes ahead in 28 or not. Currently, there will be a slight favouritism for it to go ahead. That said, should it go off, Wolves will probably double in 29. So, again, a lot of information to be learnt during game week 25. João Gomez, who scored, is 4.5.
Midfielder.
As a midfielder. Now, look, he doesn't even start the game yet, so I'm not suggesting anyone goes in, but it might be one that gets a lot of traction quite quickly if he did start against Bournemouth. And I don't think that's impossible. But he's not like an out-and-out forward or anything. He is one that's been bought in terms of developing. I don't think Wolves fans are particularly expecting him to become a regular starter, but certainly one to keep an eye on. As are Southampton, because they've got the double themselves 27. And how many times have we seen this managerial bounce quickly, right? After Chelsea, they've got Leeds, Leicester, then double. So, I mean, there's 3 fixtures there. Admittedly, yes, United is the first part of the double, but Leeds, Leicester double is not too bad. The Leicester fixtures at home. I think Suleiman is one to keep an eye on. 8 completed dribbles at the weekend, most of any player in any Premier League game this season. So he's quite an exciting player. And Onuachu up front is worth keeping an eye on as well. Reality, you're obviously not buying that this week with Chelsea away. And it depends what they do from a managerial appointment. I know when I last looked last night, it was a lot of money had gone in with the bookmakers on Jesse Marsh, actually.
Interesting. Let's talk about Bournemouth, Newcastle. We can keep it snappy from an FPL point of view, James, because Newcastle now go into Liverpool blank Man City. So no new investment necessarily going in there at all. And Bournemouth sliding slowly, but they again now have Wolves, City, Arsenal, Liverpool as the next 4. You'd be mad to want to go into them as well, potentially from an FPL point of view right now.
Yeah, you're not. I mean, Traore at 4.5 is worth keeping an eye on. And just to note, obviously, Dominic Solanke obviously back fit and available as well. 5.5. And I was paying more for him a period, sort of game week 8 to 13. He did pretty well for me. That's an interesting one to keep an eye on. You know, a lot of us have got the likes of Nonto at 5. Solanke's an out-and-out potential talisman and not much more. So, again, you're quite right. You're not going to go and buy now. But do remember that the fixture with Brighton that needs rearranging is highly likely to end up in a week that's not a big double. So it could be they suddenly drop it's just them and Brighton doubling in, say, game week 31, for example. And if you're already sitting there with big Brighton coverage, you think, I want another doubler, you may end up looking at Dominic Solanke. Their fixtures really, though, when you look at their fixture, I find it difficult to foresee them winning anytime soon. But they were very unlucky not to do so at the weekend. Newcastle were not in their best moment, it's worth saying. And Solanke obviously should have scored right at the end, where Kieran Trippier's ended up clearing it off the line. Problem for Newcastle is injuries beginning to build up. So St. Maximin limps off. We think Almiron's maybe got a wrist injury, but that's probably something he can play through. Joe Willock went off in the first half injured as well. And Callum Wilson missed out with a hamstring complaint, where it's like, oh yeah, Callum Wilson be back next week. Yeah, I've heard that one before, and we haven't seen him for 3-4 weeks. So I think bar Trippier, most of your Newcastle assets are sell at this stage. They feel easier to sell than the Brighton or Brentford assets with the double, or Manchester United assets when you look at, like, say they've got the single fixtures against Southampton 27, or Leicester this coming week is still a good fixture as well. Not that Liverpool's a particularly bad fixture for Newcastle right now. I think, what have people got where they've got true confidence this week? I think a lot of people end up benching the likes of Botman or Burn this week. Trippier, he's going to be so difficult for people to sell because so many will have the value built up in him. And he too has a good fixture in 27, Wolves at home. So, but I think most other Newcastle at the moment is probably a sell and come back to. Just remember, obviously, they play 28 as well. So depending on your strategy, which a lot of people like me can't really define until the FA Cup fixtures are gone between 25 and 26. On the face of it, I go, right, sell Botman, James. You're probably not starting him against Liverpool. He's blanks. Then you're not going to start him at Man City. It might be very useful for me for Nottingham Forest away though in 28 if I decide not to do anything that week. So, something to debate through. But you're not investing in them. 11 draws now this season. And they haven't won a Premier League game yet when Bruno Guimaraes has been absent. Now, it's a small sample. It's only 5 games. We've drawn 4 and lost 1 of the games they played without him. And I think they've only scored a couple of goals in those games as well. It's not clicking at the moment. They probably need to realise that they're in a great position because they're a kind of main opponent at this moment for 4th. Has just had a terrible week with the injuries to Tottenham. And this why, Suj, honestly, Brighton are absolutely in the mix for top 4. And if Liverpool, Chelsea, I think even still, if they can sort themselves out, I wouldn't rule them out. Because neither Newcastle or Tottenham at the moment look like they're going to go, right, we're going to win 4 in a row. Doesn't look like it's going to happen.
No. Let's talk about the Sunday games quickly, James. You've got Leeds United versus Manchester United, 2-0 to Man United, although Leeds did have a pretty decent XG. They out XG'd Man United in this, didn't they, overall?
Oh, yeah, it's nearly double.
And it could have been quite different, but United obviously had to change the team around a little bit. Luke Shaw, is he a reformed centre-back now? Sabitzer coming in for obviously Casemiro, who is suspended, and Jadon Sancho getting some minutes as well. But United will be happy that they've got over the line and got 3 points here.
Yeah, I think it would have been a bit of concern, obviously, after they drew with Leeds earlier in the week, in terms of you got to cut the games in a row without winning. Did United deserve to win this yesterday? No, not particularly, but they were obviously ruthless in the final stages. Rashford had started scoring headed goals. Didn't really know he had that in his locker, but that's 2 in the last week, and he does keep scoring. He's another one who, even in spite of the blank 25, again, people are going to have big value in looking Liverpool ways not as scary as it normally would, thinking, I want to keep this player. I'm one of those people thinking that. Maguire and Shaw played at centre-back, which is a strange one, with Martinez and Varane left out. I don't know if there's longer-term thinking there where there's concern about overloading those players because of perhaps their involvement in the World Cup. It might be as simple as that. Shaw obviously got the return once he went back at left-back. It's a good result. Leeds, if you're not right, you can get done over, but they do have a bit of thanks to the goalkeeper, and it was nice for people like me who made that Kepa De Gea transfer a few weeks ago to actually have one go in
go the other way. Yeah,
favour. I had people asking me going into the week, should I take a hit to reverse it again? I was like, don't do it for a hit. But even I said to one person, I said if it was for free, I'd probably do it. And I'd have lost. And there's going to be some who's gone De Gea back to Kepa this week and missed all those hauls, and now you've missed this one as well. Rashford, 21 goals in all competitions now. So his best is 22 in the season. So he's going to beat that as long as he stays fit. That's the big thing for him now. Like, he looks fully back fit for the first time in a couple of years. For Leeds, winless in 9 Premier League games now this season. Obviously, they've got an appointment themselves to make this week. And obviously, they're competing with Southampton for an appointment. Now, most people would choose the Leeds appointment over Southampton, but it sounds like Leeds aren't actually close to getting someone through the door at the moment. He says probably gets an appointment done as soon as I release this podcast. Andrea Radrizzini, he tweeted, I want to say last Tuesday night. It was like, yeah, white smoke tonight or white smoke in the morning. And like nearly a week later, there's still not an appointment. So whoever they wanted to go for, looks like they've turned them down. The one that I think might stand out as kind of new from an FPL perspective is Somerville, who we were looking at a lot prior to the World Cup because he was in great form. He's down to 4.2, Suj.
Wow.
As a midfielder. And they've got Everton and Southampton the next two. Sinistera's got an issue at the moment. The only caveat I would say is because of Nonto's form, it now looks like he's going to play on the right rather than the left. But Leeds' best moments in the first half fell to him. What a potential. There's so many good players at like under 5 million in FPL midfielders. You could honestly line up every week and go 3 premium forwards. You could go to premium defenders, or no, none of them are bad. But there are so many good low price midfielders, and he's one would be right on radar again. 4.2 for a player that you know has got offensive ability, and you can pick and choose when to play or not play. That's a potential enabler for another transfer as well, isn't it? So keep him right on radar. United's another one. There's no new investment at the moment for Manchester United.
Huge game this week. Everton Leeds, monster. Like, say Everton are to get anything out of the game tonight, even a draw, puts them on the same points psychologically in that relegation battle. That's going to be such an important game for both teams.
And it was a really big game when they played each other about this time last season as well, and Everton beat them 3-0.
And let's see.
I know, obviously, I'm sure that was before Bielsa went. Yeah, Leeds have got the firepower though. You see that again yesterday. That gives me more confidence. It's interesting. You obviously link them to Everton. Everton, you look at now and go with Dyche, defensively more solid.
Good.
Leeds offensively, I think, can get out of it.
Let's talk about Man City 3, Aston Villa 1 as the last game of the weekend, James. Pep is obviously always the first topic of conversation. His press conference the other day was quite fiery. I had a number of decisions to make around Man City because of Sky Fantasy Football. You can make transfers middle of the game week. And you were kind of talking about Arsenal. I really felt that in the next 4, with Bournemouth and Forest also, both away, but Bournemouth and Forest coming up, City were worth a gamble. The players I bought didn't play, but that's a story for another day. Well, one of them did, to be fair. And in the end, because they didn't keep a clean sheet, it didn't actually make too much of an impact. And those guys could easily come back in because you never know what Pep's going to do. But they'll be happy to come away with this 3-1, getting back to scoring and getting some of their better players on the pitch. You're still missing the likes of Foden and what have you. But yeah.
It's 3-2-4-1. Essentially, with big distances between the back three. They went through certain phases of the game where it just looked like there wasn't a left back on the pitch, and he used Bernardo Silva quite a lot to compensate for that. Whereas he's probably a sort of one in possession where he'd maybe drop into that position, perhaps to push Cancelo previously quite high and stuff. But it was like defensively, it felt like he was shoveling quite quickly into that position. But essentially what he did, first and foremost, was he got their best players on the pitch and he made them look a threat. I made a comment at half time about City giving the opposition fear. And that's when at the best, when you genuinely fear them, when the fear grips you and you're like, we're going to get overwhelmed here. I don't know how we can keep them out. And the return of Laporte and Diaz was something, obviously, we discussed with Johnny Pringle on COTC last week. And we're both in complete agreement that you bring them back in the team, this is a different beast. Whatever the system is. They've won 15 of the last 17 games that Laporte and Diaz have both played together. The thing was, me and Johnny didn't think he'd do it. We thought Guardiola was going to be stubborn and keep playing the likes of Aki, Akanji, and he might go back to it. But definitely, whatever the system, with Laporte and Diaz in it, City will be a better team for it. They'll be better defensively. So Laporte played left of Diaz. I can't hear you, Suj.
Sorry, James. I was saying Diaz only came off.
I can see you talking and there's nothing's happening.
My fault. Diaz only came off at half time because of the yellow card, as Pep said after the game. So there's nothing to think that there's a problem with Diaz or it was a tactical switch. He did just say, look, he's on a yellow and they're running in behind. I didn't want to risk it.
If he plays that way against Arsenal, it's mad brave. And he might do it because he is mad brave. In that perspective. But I think Aki will play on Wednesday. I've spoken about this before. I think Aki against Saka is probably And I think they'll probably play a more conventional back four. And I think now probably Laporte and Diaz will play. And Walker will play right back. And they'll take one of the attacking players out the team. Probably be Gundogan against Arsenal. But if Haaland wasn't fit, might just leave Gundogan false nine or something at Arsenal. And just
or De Bruyne. De Bruyne's done false nine before.
Yeah, and just overload Arsenal in the midfield area. He'll be trying to work out where can they dominate. And there's certainly more question marks for Arsenal to think about than there was this time last week. So I think 3-2-4-1 is a system we'll see a lot more from top teams in the next few years. I was asked that last year, what do you think kind of will become a new fad formation at some point? And this is it. 3-2-4-1, where you give a little bit up to the opposition, but you can just overwhelm. It allows you kind of big space in between the back three, and you can create this box in midfield, and you still have a front player. And what we're talking about with 3-2-4-1 is players not playing as wing backs. We're talking about them playing as wingers. Grealish and Morris didn't play wing back yesterday.
No.
Played as wingers. And I think it's something from the top teams we'll see more in forthcoming years. Yeah, much better from City. De Bruyne was more lively, but I don't think overly appealed from an FPL perspective. And I think those who like me will very much be looking at Salah's double in 25, despite Salah's form recently. Morris was the one. And he should have had the miss in the second half as well. It's just about come down, I think, actually. There's every chance the US airspace will be shooting that Morris shot down soon, I think, if the ball's still travelling upwards. 7.8. Johnny said as well on COTC last week, he said if you're going in new, one of them would go Mahrez over De Bruyne. And at the moment, there's every reason to think, sorry, I'm going to curse it for you guys, that he'll play the majority of games at the moment. But also I would add the caveat that even historically, Mahrez has played a lot in the Champions League. And so that situation may change. He can play Bernardo on that side. He can move Foden out there. Subject to the system, he can move De Bruyne out there as well. But Mahrez was the one that I think we're all thinking this morning, shit, wish I'd done that. Haaland, obviously he gave up the penalty to Mahrez.
No, he didn't. Well, he did because
let's say Mahrez took the penalty.
Took it off him. And Pep did say that Haaland's penalty taker and they're going to have a conversation about it. So,
but did Haaland decide not to take it because of the fire?
The knock.
Maybe. I don't think we'll probably never know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But I've been just having a quick scan through some of these Twitter questions while you've been chatting, James. There is a lot of conversation around, is it now time to not perma-captain Haaland? You do that at your peril, right? Because he scores that penalty and he's probably got the most points at the weekend, give or take. So, yeah, I think people are getting itchy feet too quick. And remember, 2 of the next 3, Forest, Bournemouth, you'd expect City to win them.
Yeah, look, we've spoken about this a lot recently. I always think pick your battles. Pick your battles. So this week, for me, wasn't a pick your battle, although admittedly, particularly in Arsenal offensive players, there were definite alternatives. In 24, if he's fit and he's playing at Nottingham Forest, if we've got no reason to think he doesn't play, with what I've just said about Forest losing Bolly and McKenna, it's not one to pick your battle, I don't think. 25, when you've got the likes of Salah, Saka with doubles, and they go to Bournemouth, despite it being a very good fixture, pick your battles. You've got 2 fixtures of other teams. I would, if he had Bournemouth at home in that fixture, I'd be very nervous, even with other players having a double. Because I know he'd walk off at half time and have a hat trick. He'll have the match ball, for example. 26, you can make a case to pick your battle. They play Newcastle at home. Arsenal got Bournemouth at home. Rashford's got Southampton at home the following week in 27. And you've got the likes of Toney, McAllister, the Brighton players might have doubles as well. So there's definitely times coming up where you can pick your battles. But if I think he's playing in 24, it's not one where I want to pick battle. Tottenham playing West Ham, Arsenal going to Villa, Liverpool going to Newcastle. Like this week coming, what's really the alternative? I'm only taking him on if I don't think he's going to start. Otherwise, I would captain him in 24. But yeah, there's definitely opportunities coming up, like there was with Rashford last week, where you could take him on. And a lot of people, it's worth saying, I'm not saying necessarily we should compare the two, but a lot of people will regret that the amount of times they captain Mo Salah in the second half of last season, based on him looking like Superman in the first half of last season. Haaland doesn't look like it at the moment, but I still think it's pick your battles.
There we go, James. It's a wrap of the games. We've still got Liverpool, Everton today, Arsenal, Man City, on Wednesday. For the patrons that are listening, we'll be reviewing those games on Thursday for you as your Patreon podcast. And with that in mind, James, what do we have for the rest of the week for everybody to listen to? I've been through the Twitter questions. There are only 2 or 3 here, James, that we haven't covered off.
All right, let's
and
do
we
them
will.
quickly then. Just briefly on Villa, just very, very quickly. Obviously, look, they've got Arsenal this week, so you're not looking to buy, but the fixtures are good from 25. We've spoken about it. Tyrone Mings missed out yesterday with a minor injury. He is expected back for 24. Callum Chambers had a difficult afternoon, to say the least. Ollie Watkins, 3-3 now, 7.1. He's another one, I think, once we hit 25, may get a bit of interest. Content this week, Suj. Tomorrow, clash of the correspondents. Brentford versus Crystal Palace with Tom Med and Mig, as I mentioned a few times. For the patrons, that's available for you now on Patreon. It will go out to everyone else tomorrow afternoon. I'm busy most of tomorrow, so I had to pre-do some shit this week. Wednesday be an Ask James stream. I don't know what time yet, because it depends what time I get back from Milan, but afternoon. Let me say that at the moment. So we're moving the Sky podcast to Thursday, just to give us a little bit of breathing space, and then we can kind of react to the Arsenal City stuff the night before. Friday, we're going to do Money in Football on what's going on with Manchester City. We have promised it. We will do it. That's penciled in the schedule for Friday. Patreon content in terms of podcast this week. Q&A today. Tomorrow, quiz on AC Milan in Europe, which one of our patrons, James Johnson, has provided for us. Wednesday will be Tottenham as soon as I get back from Milan. Thursday, as Suj said, we're gonna do a little kind of season 6B, if you will. We'll review the games from Monday night and Wednesday night's big clash, obviously, as well. And then our Gameweek 24 preview show on Friday.
Cool. Sounds good. Right, James, a couple of questions to wrap this episode firstly. And I'm not sure what this is reference to.
Can I buy your airline tickets to Milan? Yes, I'm prepared to negotiate.
Clive wants to know, how was that sausage roll?
It's great.
Where did you have a sausage roll in Leicester or something?
Both of them. So I feel like I should save it for Tottenham, but yeah, I ended up with 2 of them by accident. It's quite funny. Honestly, I was having such a great day. It's about 3:20 on Saturday. The second sausage roll I had during the end of the first half, because it was that bad. I mean, it's the first time I've ever been eating something while Tottenham were playing a football match, because I was in despair and I needed help. Yeah, great sausage roll. Great, but there's competitive ones now. I think Brentford's is good, I've mentioned, and actually the one at Tottenham's good. But yeah, I still think that Leicester one's the best.
James Bishop, I am a Liverpool fan. Who is more crap, us or Spurs?
I don't know. How big a room have you got to have this argument, basically? Liverpool could fix stuff, I think. I still think Liverpool can finish top 5, really do. As shit as they've been, because suddenly you start putting like Jota, Diaz, Van Dijk and stuff back in there. And as I said, Newcastle, Tottenham don't look capable enough of putting kind of 4 or 5 wins on the bounce at the moment. And Liverpool, I think, neither do they, admittedly, but we know historically that they're capable. So I think if they're going to do it, it kind of needs to be now. They probably can't afford to lose at Newcastle at the weekend to keep themselves in contention. And also Chelsea got a brilliant run of fixtures, you know. And like if we were playing Chelsea tomorrow at White Hart Lane with the injury problems we've got now, I would suddenly, now from last week thinking we give them problems, now thinking they'll probably come and beat us as well, unfortunately. So I think it could end up being a really low points total for fourth. Could be sort of like 65, 66 points. Admittedly, we had this conversation last year and it still ended up being 70.
Last question of the show, James, and maybe we'll have to leave this one rhetorical. Listeners, we're about to blow your minds. Amra Batman Joe says, why do our feet smell and our noses run?
Do you want to answer that?
There's no answer. He's blown my mind. I actually have no answer.
Well, my feet don't smell.
I was going to suggest it, but once they've been in socks all day to Leicester and back, they probably do. Yes, listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this episode and a rundown of the 9 games. As James mentioned, the rest of the content is ready for you. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/, Planet FPL, we'd love to have you over there as part of our Slack community with the additional podcasts and leagues and games and all that kind of fun as well. But other than that, have a great week. Look after yourselves. And it's half-term week in England, James. So a lot of people will have kids running around them. So survive, do your best, and we'll be back at you next week. Stay safe. Shout for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Play it your way as always. Cue music, please. Man sharp.